fraud. See, he's not happy when people criticize him and do things that he feels are unwarranted of persons, is plainly proven, who lately and at other times have tried to give currency to certain spurious acts against our Savior, as if the acts were against our Savior. What he means there, acts, just like in the book of Acts, are the actions of a certain person or group of people in the Gospels, or the Acts. It's supposed to be the Acts of the Apostles. It is the records of the official acts of a certain governorship. And he says these are against our Savior because the date shows the falsehood of these inventors. Now this is important. Someone in his time, the 300s, was circulating material from the Chancellery records, supposedly based on the actual records of Pontius Pilate's reign, because the Roman governors kept very detailed daily records, and they were called acts, the Acti Pilati in this case, the Acts of Pilate. And there are, by the way, apocryphal works called the Acts of Pilate, which contradict these acts. So it shows these acts, or these records of Pontius Pilate, are you following me? Of Pontius Pilate's administration were very much in the mind of people then, if not now. And the reason they were in the mind, as Eusebius is telling us, is because some people were circulating things to show, like George Bush's guard records or whatever, to show that they're, I guess to show that the Gospels have an inaccurate presentation, that Jesus was not killed in that way, and that it wasn't the right date, and so on. And these are from the official record, so he calls them spurious. And he says that we can see they're false because they're claiming that it was in the 4th consulship of Tiberius, which is in the 7th year of his reign, that these things happened. They're saying that these things happened, and I don't have it exactly in front of me what the date is, but they're saying that these things happened, I think, around 21 AD, or maybe 17 or 18. I have to look at what that date is there. I don't know. Do you have a footnote in your book there? Your Penguin has no footnote? No? We don't have a footnote in this one either. But I think it's, what is happening is that in which very time of the date proves the falseness. For in the 4th consulship of Tiberius, which was in the 7th year of his reign, well, we can figure it out, the 7th year of his reign. The question is, when did Augustus die? I think around maybe 12 or so. I have to check the dates, but anyway, somewhere around maybe 12, so that would be around 19 AD. Those things are said to have occurred, which they dared say respecting our Savior's suffering and death. Which time indeed it is plain that Pilate had not even yet been appointed governor of Judea, if Josephus is to be credited, who plainly says in his work, already cited, that Pilate was appointed procurator during the 12th year of his reign. So Pilate came, so that meant that in 26, so 26 is the 12th. 26 is the 12th. So so 5 years or so 21 AD. 21 AD. We're talking about 21 AD. That these things happened in 21 AD. Now, of course, Josephus may be inaccurate because, as I said, he doesn't have good sources for this period. So, here's the problem. I don't know if you follow me. He's saying people are trying to discredit the gospel picture by circulating these acts, which are supposedly based on the official chancellery records of Pilate's administration. I would take them a little more seriously than he does. And that's just my nature. Because if you're going to circulate a false document, you're certainly not going to circulate one that is easily disproved. So if it has an error of that kind, it's quite likely that that may be, in fact, an accurate thing. We don't know that Pilate came in 26. Josephus doesn't know it either. He wasn't born then. He assumes that. Pilate seems to be a very powerful governor. He may have been there 10 years longer than we're talking about here. We don't have the good records for the period of the 10 to 30 AD, which is really frustrating because we don't have a good Josephus for this period. Josephus's material is totally sketchy in this period. And I would say, suppose in fact a messianic event did occur in 21 AD and not in 30 AD, let's say, or even earlier, 17 or 18 or 19. That makes a lot of sense to me for two reasons. One, someone like Paul, who's on the scene in the 30s, certainly in the mid-30s, if not the early 30s, doesn't seem to know anything about Jesus. He doesn't, in his letters, give you anything about Jesus' life, no stories he heard about Jesus' life, no events from Jesus' life. Now, Jesus' execution had occurred in his own lifetime when he was a functioning, mature person, and he was around. He should have been one of the witnesses to these things. So I have a feeling that Jesus must have, if we can speak about Jesus, come a lot earlier than that, because Paul talks about him like he's ancient history. And the only thing he says is basically that he was crucified at some time. But it doesn't say, he doesn't give us exactly time when. And I don't even think he mentions Pontius Pilate in any of his works, actually. That's the only historical detail Paul seems to know about Jesus, that he was crucified. If I'm going to tell you about a famous person, I would say, hey, John Kennedy, he was killed 20 years ago, but he did this, that, he got us into the Cuban Missile Crisis. He had this other friends. He didn't get along with J. Edgar Hoover, and they were at odds with each other. Lyndon Johnson didn't like him. You follow? And I'm not even someone who's au courant. You would think Paul would say, hey, I'm saying this, but when Jesus was alive, he did this, that, and the other thing. He never says anything like that. You look at Paul's letters, and you'll find he never says anything about Jesus. Only the supernatural Christ he has visions of in him. Never says anything about this historical Christ, except crucifixion. So that makes me think he didn't know a lot about Christ. And therefore that Christ wasn't very familiar in his lifetime. And I think the 21 date would explain that. Or even an earlier one, 16 or depending on when Pilate came to Palestine. And he says he came 10 years before. So he says he came to Palestine in 16 AD or something like that. Not 26 AD, these spurious acts. I would say if you're circulating acts and you want them to be acceptable, you're not going to put a piece of information in that's easily disproven. Now, someone like Eusebius, he doesn't know anything, so obviously he would jump on anything without looking into it. The other thing that I like about this is something that Noel could appreciate.